Welcome to another episode of Electable. I'm Deb Chubb, and today we're taking on a bit of a complicated story, but super relevant and super monumental in this country, let alone in the state of Indiana, where this whole case was born and rose up and ended up at the Supreme Court of the United States. So I'm joined today by Susie Talevski. She's an attorney in Valparaiso, Indiana, up here in Porter County. And she had a father who needed nursing home care. And so she helped place him in a nursing home in Valparaiso. The treatment that he received there was subpar. It was unacceptable. And Susie was just frustrated with her inability to deal with this nursing home. They were, violating his rights as a nursing home. And ultimately, Susie felt like there was such a violation that she needed to sue this nursing home because of the violation of his rights. She used a law called the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act. That is a federal law that contains a patient's Bill of Rights. And in that Bill of Rights includes a right not to be chemically restrained, that is overdrugged so that you are placid and not disagreeable, and also to not be moved without the notice to the family. And both of those things happened to her dad. She then decided to sue using this federal law. And because it's a federal law, she uses what's called Section 1983, which is kind of a vehicle created in the late 1800s in our country to allow people to sue using federal law to redress federally guaranteed rights. So she sued in federal court and was kicked out, and then wanted to appeal to the federal appellate court, which is the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago, and but really felt like that was too much. Susie's, just her. She's an attorney, but that's a big deal. Appealing to a federal court is a very big deal, and she thought it was all over. And then came along this great nonprofit law firm from Washington, D.C., who said, "Hey, we'd like to help you appeal this case." And they did. And they went to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals and they won, which meant that she should then be able to go back to the federal district court and have a trial on the facts to decide whether she was entitled to financial remedy that's allowed under this federal law. So, but then the defendants, which turned out to be an organization called HHC, which is an actual governmental entity created in Marion County, Indiana, and this corporation, this governmental agency, owns it turns out 15 licenses for nursing homes all over the state, including the one in Valpo. They don't, go ahead. What did I get? Did I get something wrong? Tell me.
They own 78 licenses, 15% of the total.
I'm sorry. Great. Yeah, Thank you. Okay. So they own 78 licenses. They don't run the nursing homes. They don't own the buildings that these nursing homes are in. They simply own the license. And because a governmental agency owns that license, they are entitled to a higher reimbursement from Medicaid. So HHC out of Marion County owns all of these nursing home licenses, and they get this money in, and we'll get a little bit more into the details as we go about what they did with that money. But anyway, so that is now, that's the defendant. And so that group, with Todd Rokita, our clown attorney general here in Indiana, got together and tried to get certiorari, that is a review by the Supreme Court of the United States, to try to overturn that decision that was provided by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, it went to the Supreme Court, And many of us were involved with protesting this case, protesting HHC for taking this to the Supreme Court, because if HHC won at the Supreme Court level, it would mean that millions, hundreds of millions, I think, of people would not be able to sue bad actors who are receiving Medicaid and providing subpar services. It would wipe out that cause of action, that ability to sue, to millions of people who are getting services from federally funded or providers. So anyway, and everyone thought, all right, this is over. Look at the Supreme Court makeup. They're a bunch of conservatives. This is never going to work. And, you know, no one had really much hope. I won't say that because I know Susie probably did. But frankly, all the protesting we did was trying to get HHC, the defendant, to pull their application to the Supreme Court, even though I think that probably isn't really even a thing. I think once it's there, I don't know if you can pull it. But anyway, so that's all we felt like we could do. We felt like we had nothing else to ask. But they wouldn't pull it. And again, I'm not sure if they even could. But anyway, and Joe Hogsett, mayor from Indianapolis, who's really all very much tied into this governmental agency at the county level. You'll recall Marion County has a UniGov, city county government unified. So he is, you know, all involved in this government entity, HHC, that owns all these licenses, and we'll get into again what the bad actors. But anyway, she won. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled on Susie's case, so she will be forever in the books with her name Talevski versus HHC, and as the winner, the savior, who protected the rights, the federal rights of millions of people, such that they can still sue a provider who is getting federal dollars and who does not comply with federal civil rights law. So, oh my gosh. I mean, this, you know, the day I heard this, I just like called Susie immediately, like, oh my God, I could not believe it. I was so blown away that you won. And this is such an amazing thing. And so Susie and I have talked a lot, and I'm going to let her talk some more here eventually. But I wanted to get that story out there so everyone could kind of get a grasp on the big picture. But Susie, now I want you to, you know, tell us, you know, your story, how you ended up there. I mean, I was just so thrilled to hear your story a long time ago. But this is really one of those, I don't even know how, you know, unwinding of, you know, it's an onion, layers and layers of kind of bizarre, you know, bad actors and government bad acting. And so there's a lot going on in this case. But anyway, I mean, but I just want to just reiterate that this case and Susie's case really has guaranteed for hundreds of millions of people some recourse when they are not treated well. So Susie, let's talk about what happened at that nursing home and what happens at nursing homes all over the state, you know, whose licenses are held by HHC or other county government agencies.
Well, unfortunately, in the state of Indiana, most of the nursing homes are woefully understaffed. I think that's the number one biggest problem. And that's very common actually throughout the country. You know, they just don't have enough staff. And that's what was going on at Valparaiso Care and Rehabilitation. So one of the ways they deal with short staffing is they actually, you know, will dope people up, you know, what they call chemically restrain people. And that, you know, basically makes them, you know, makes the patient just sleep all day, you know. Mm-hmm. They're kind of catatonic, sedated, they sleep all day, they don't move around. And, you know, that makes it easier for what staff there is. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely a violation of a patient's civil rights. You know, can you imagine? It's the same thing as if you would tie them up, physically restrain them,
right?
You know, if you chemically restrain them with high, and usually it's high levels of what they call psychotropic medication, psychiatric drugs, essentially. And that's what happened with my dad. He was in the dementia unit, and, he deteriorated very, very quickly. And I asked, like, what is going on with him? Why is he deteriorating so quickly? And they kept telling me, oh, it's the progression of the disease. Dementia is a progressive disease. That's true, but this was quite rapid. And eventually I did, figure out, like, I thought to myself, I was watching them actually give him a bunch of medication. I asked them, I didn't know what medications exactly they were giving him at that moment in time. I thought that looks like a lot of medication. So I asked to see, all his medications, the list of medications. That's where I found out that he was taking 6. They were giving him 6 psychiatric medications out of 10 total. And I recognized, the medications, that they were medications that could knock a horse off, its feet, much less a human being. I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what's going on here now. And so I did get him help, from an outside neurologist, and we were able to taper down that medicine. I did file a complaint with the Indiana State Department of Health, and they did nothing. But I was happy to see my dad come back to life gradually. But then what happened is they started sending him out to a hospital, a neuropsychiatric hospital, like an hour and a half away in Bremen, Indiana, in Marshall County. So we know, I'm from Porter County, you're from LaPorte County. We know where Marshall County is.
Yes.
It's another time zone. It's in the Eastern time zone. It's an hour and a half away from here, in the middle of nowhere. No offense to Marshall County, but it's really in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And they did this 3 times consecutively, with like maybe a day or 2 in between each time. And the 3rd time they abandoned him there. They left him there, and they contacted us like the day before. Like, it was a Friday. They contacted us. He was supposed to come back on Monday. And then they sent us a document, via FedEx, basically saying we're not taking him back. And then it listed the, the information about doing an appeal through the Indiana State Department of Health, which we did do. We took advantage of this. We thought this was a way we could get him back. So we did this appeal. We won the appeal, actually. The administrative law judge said that the transfer, they didn't follow the proper procedure, so it was illegal. He has to come back. But the nursing home, which was run by American Senior Communities, which is the private partner of the Health and Hospital Corporation of Marion County. And Marion County, everybody should understand, is essentially the city of Indianapolis.
Right.
They're one and the same.
Right. Because, the UniGov thing.
The UniGov, so the city of Indianapolis sits in Marion County. And so this is what started my whole entire battle, this whole thing, because I just, I complained to the State Department of Health. I said, hey, they're not abiding by this decision. What are you going to do about it? And they told me, oh, we're not going to do anything about it. You have to take them to court, to state court, is what they told me. Right. And this is where my disagreement with them came about.
Right. So which you can do, you can sue at the state level under state tort law. Unfortunately, though, Indiana has some of the worst tort law for plaintiffs, that is, the worst awards scales, and the worst, threshold for winning. I mean, I think, most attorneys say, well, you pretty much got to die.
For medical
to have a case.
Yes,
because it has to go before this medical review board, and they're very difficult to get by. They'll reject it. They'll give it a negative, recommendation. And so state law really is not very useful in this case.
That's right. And and also at the time, there was really no way to enforce, FINRA unless you did what I did, so,
right. So FINRA being the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act.
Yes.
Right. Which is federal law.
Yeah. So, I mean, in this whole story, I really was confused by the reaction of the State Department of Health, and, just the whole thing. I thought, what is going on here? We have this federal law that seems like a very strong law, but it's
Right.
not being enforced. And the Indiana State Department of Health is supposed to be enforcing it. So I was not satisfied. And, I mean, at one point they stopped taking my phone calls, stopped replying to my messages. And I think they thought I was just going to go away, because I mean, most people are going to go away because this is kind of, a lot of
Yeah.
time and effort to fight them. But I didn't do that. I decided to go see my congressman. I went to see Congressman Visklowski instead, and I complained to him, but then I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research on, because I was wanting to understand, why did American senior communities think that they could shirk the federal law and get away with it? It
Right.
seemed to
Using
me they
federal
knew.
dollars.
Right. It seemed to me that they were very confident that the State Department of Health was going to do nothing about
Oh.
it. And I thought that was interesting. And, so initially I did not know that Marion County owned the nursing home. I found out through this book here.
There you go. The Poverty Industry, the Exploitation of America's Most Vulnerable Citizens by Daniel Hatcher.
Yes, this is an excellent book. I recommend it to all your viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
all
what
Americans.
you found in it was information about Indiana.
Yeah, so what happened was I was just Googling, and trying to figure out more about American senior communities. And they're a very interesting company, to say the least. And I came across this book, The Poverty Industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a newly issued book, brand new. And they had a sample chapter, online. And the sample chapter that they had, coincidentally, happened to be about American senior communities and the Health and Hospital Corporation of Marion County. And that's how I found out about the scheme, the Medicaid scheme that Indiana is engaging in, wherein they take astronomical sums of Medicaid money in, because these counties, several counties, about 20 or so, have these hospitals that are county hospitals. And so if a county hospital owns a nursing home, then the Medicaid money that they're getting taking in for care of the patients, they get higher, what they call supplemental payments, also known as upper payment limits. And so they're taking in much, much more than just a private nursing home. So what's happened in the state of Indiana is something very, very unusual, where the nursing homes in this state, 90% of them are owned by these county hospitals, and the originator of this whole scheme is the Health and Hospital Corporation of Marion County. And at that time, it was under the leadership of the CEO. His name is Matthew Gutwein. Okay. And he's the one, along with a few other people, and this all, by the way, is from the Indianapolis Star articles, that came up with this idea in I think it was around 2003, 2004, because their public safety net hospital was bleeding money.
Right.
So they needed to come up with financing cash, quickly, and they didn't want to tax the people of Marion County. So they came up with this, like, it's almost like a loophole if you think about it. Like, oh, if we buy up nursing home licenses, they don't even buy up the actual the physical nursing home. They buy up the license. Then we can charge these very high upper payment limits. And within this, now this, I don't understand how this is legal. I really don't. Haven't figured it out. But apparently they don't have to use this money for the actual nursing home patients. They can
to actually care for the nursing home patients.
That's right.
It is just amazing.
That's right. So they're diverting something like 60 to 70% of the money away from the nursing home patients to other uses. Now, in the case of Marion County, one of the uses is they built themselves a brand new $750 million public safety net hospital, top of the line, by the way, very extravagant, luxurious, very beautiful, maybe way more than what they needed. I don't know,
Well,
but
they had the money.
they got the money, on the backs of other people suffering.
That's right.
And they did this, and it's got all kinds of art in there. It's got a rooftop garden,
Fancy.
Got a lot of extravagance in there, and they named it Ashkenazi Hospital, after a very wealthy family that donated some money But really, they should have named it Nursing Home Patients Memorial Hospital, because the
Right,
way this hospital is actually built is upon the suffering of nursing home patients here in Indiana.
right,
And you got to remember, most of the nursing homes that they own are outside of Marion County,
right.
you
But all
know,
that
so
money was, that they received in reimbursements got spent. And it was also, I think some of the money too went to prop up the old hospital, Wisher Hospital, because it was bleeding money. And so they diverted that money to prop up Wisher Hospital until they could build the fancy pants new Eskenazi, and then to just, demo the Wisher Hospital. So
right.
yes, and we know just statistically that Indiana spends the least of all states on nursing home care.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's what's interesting about Indiana. Also, we get the most amount of money in Medicaid dollars for nursing home care, but actually we have the worst nursing homes. It's
Right,
because of the scheme. So
right,
I didn't know any of this. I did not know any of this prior to my dad, going into this nursing home. I had no idea this was going on. So it
what
was
a
very,
journey.
very shocking to me. Actually, I was like really shocked, and I was very angry. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. My dad didn't need to suffer, and
Right,
neither do any of these other nursing home patients. This is
right,
all kind of an artificial environment that they've created intentionally because they want to make as much money as they can for themselves. And
right,
really, we don't know where all the money's going.
right,
There's no transparency here.
right. Well, and the arrogance. I mean, just, the arrogance. I mean, the lack of humanity to
Oh,
just not care for all these people in nursing homes, so that you can skim off this money and do whatever you want.
it's really
So
stunning. You said it
it is stunning.
perfectly. The lack of humanity is stunning to me. I mean, you know, their insatiable greed is only outmatched by their unbridled cruelty to nursing home patients, to disabled people, to the most
Right,
vulnerable in society. This is so unacceptable. It's unacceptable to any human being, any normal human being that you speak to. But somehow, to the people who are running this at the very top, you know, apparently it's acceptable. So I am just dumbfounded by this, because these are our fellow Hoosiers after all. This is all
right.
happening in
They're our
Indiana.
parents and our grandparents.
Yeah,
It's shocking. So then you decided to sue them.
I did, but I decided to sue them in a different way. Obviously I did not use the Indiana medical malpractice statute. I decided I was going to, when I figured out that who owned this it was actually Marion County, then I said to myself, wait a minute, the government is abusing my father. That changed everything. The local government, Marion County, is violating federal law, the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act. And in my view, the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act, which has the Nursing Home Patients Bill of Rights, it creates all these rights, all these protections.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought to myself, wait a minute, can't we use Section 1983? These are civil rights violations. Can't we use Section 1983 to hold them accountable? And so I did a little legal research, and I hit the jackpot when I found the one and only case in the country at the time, which was out of the Third Circuit, came out of Pennsylvania. And the Third Circuit had ruled, it's called the Grammar case. And the Third Circuit had ruled, I don't know, at that time, maybe it was 7-8 years before. I've been fighting this fight for many years. So, I can't remember
I'm sure it's all
exactly
a
how far
blur at
back.
this point. Yeah.
Yeah, so it existed, and it was exactly on point. So once I found that case, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. We can do this here in the Seventh Circuit in Indiana, and I did find that there had been a case out of the Southern District of Indiana, but that was dismissed, same sort of, legal theory,
Mm-hmm.
the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act being, violation of rights being enforced through Section 1983. They never took it to the Seventh Circuit. And then there
Oh,
was a
really?
case out of Wisconsin also in federal court. They got dismissed too. They never took it to the Seventh Circuit. And then there was a case out of Illinois, same thing, but they never took it to the Seventh Circuit. So I knew that, well, there was no case from Northern District of Indiana. So I thought to myself, hey, let's try it up here. But in my mind, it was always like, this case has to get to the Seventh Circuit because that's how you establish precedent.
Right.
And I thought we could replicate what they did in the Third Circuit. That was the idea. We can replicate it, and obviously it would have a very, very wide social impact here in the state of Indiana. So it was my motivation was dual, was seeking justice for my father. But the other very strong motivation was I needed to help others, other nursing home patients and their families.
Right. I mean, those other cases, they lost. They got nothing for the suffering of their relatives. And
Right.
so,
Yeah. I mean, it was not a cause of action. So,
yeah.
you really had to take it up to the Seventh Circuit. So, I mean, so when, I found one other attorney in the state of Indiana that was willing to help me. We filed in district court in the Northern District. They filed, HHC filed a motion to dismiss. They got it dismissed after 10 months, right when the pandemic started. So in March
Oh, wow.
of 2020 is when we got dismissed.
Oh, wow.
So that was, obviously very upsetting, but I was hoping that I'd win, and then I figured that they would take me to the Seventh Circuit. So I thought as a winner, you'd have a bit of a better chance of, winning. But I was like, oh no, I'm going to be the loser going in, so doing the appeal. So, but what happened was really, I call it a miracle. This attorney contacted me from this very big, prestigious law firm. He's an appellate attorney. His name is Andrew Tutt, and he's brilliant. And he contacted me and offered his help pro bono. And his law firm is
At no charge. That means no charge.
At no charge. And yeah, he works for one of the biggest law firms in the country, one of the most prestigious law firms, Arnold and Porter. And so, of course, I was shocked, to tell you the truth. I didn't even believe it was a real appellate attorney calling me. I thought somebody was pulling a prank on me or a scam or something like that. But he turned out to be real. And of course, I said, yes, we'd love your help. And that started our journey, our appellate journey that really was, during the pandemic. So, in a kind of a miserable situation with the pandemic and my worry about my father and everything, and, and just everybody else, obviously, we were working on this. And then, we had the oral arguments in December of, what was it, I guess it was just December of 2020. And then the decision came out July 27th, I think, of 2021, where we won 3-0. So that was a monumental big decision out of the Seventh Circuit. Now, I knew that HHC was going to file a petition for cert, because there's no way they would let that stand. This is their $1 billion baby.
Right. And your winning would mean that anybody could sue. And, so under that federal law, the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act, there's damages. You can get attorney's fees. Is it anything more? Is it punitive? Can you get punitive damages as well, or treble? Or
there is something with punitive damages. I can't remember if it's, don't quote me on this, because I don't exactly know if it goes to the private company or the public company, but I think that's also a possibility.
So, right.
Yes.
So, but you can, just getting attorney's fees is huge.
Right.
Because that means that anybody can, get an attorney to help them, because they will get, if they win, they will get attorney's fees. Under Indiana's, malpractice laws or tort laws, no, you would never be able to get attorney's fees unless it was some just egregious behavior.
Right.
So having won that meant that, that anybody would be able to sue. So, okay, as we were saying, that we knew this was a big deal, and we knew that they would appeal the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals decision, because it would allow so many people to sue and to get decent remedies,
Right,
decent,
nursing home patients, right.
right. They would be able to sue, and they would be able to get decent money and attorney's fees, which would allow more people to sue. And of course, they knew that that a lot of people were going to sue because the care they were providing was so abysmal.
Exactly. I mean, that's how they're able to thrive financially, is by cutting their labor cost,
Mhm.
which results in substandard care, which results in the negligence and the abuse of the elderly nursing home patients. This is
Right.
their business model. This
Yes.
is their business model. And
Dang.
so they couldn't possibly let this stand. But hey, when you're trying to get to the Supreme Court, that's pretty big. So, their appellate attorney, Supreme Court litigator, he's a pretty smart guy. And the way he was able to get this case really into the Supreme Court, what they call it, went up on what they call a petition of certiorari,
Mhm.
is on the much bigger question, the monumental question. So the big
Right.
question was whether, beneficiaries of public safety net programs, of any public safety net program, can sue, state actors, counties, cities, the
Anyone
state.
receiving federal dollars.
Right. Yeah. Anyone
Yeah.
receiving these federal dollars for violations of their federal rights under Section 1983. This was a huge monumental question because this had really been long established, federal law, and through the precedents, of the Supreme Court. So people could sue, like if you're a Medicaid beneficiary, and I don't know, let's say hypothetically the state doesn't want to pay for a wheelchair that you're entitled to, from Medicaid. Well, you can sue the state, and
Right.
there's
You
many.
can sue using federal law. So you can
Yeah,
sue.
for a violation. Yeah,
Right.
federal law that creates a federal right, though,
Right.
because not all federal law creates a federal right, but certain ones do.
Okay. So back to the topic of why this became such an important case at the Supreme Court level. And it was because the defendants in this case, HHC and Marion County basically, and our clown attorney Todd Rokita, framed the question much more broadly, and so tried to use this as a mechanism to prevent people from suing using Section 1983 to get remedies for violation of their federal civil rights, in all kinds of other circumstances, not just the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act, but even just Medicaid.
Right,
So
other
that's the
spending
question that
clause.
ended up in front of the Supreme Court.
Right. Yeah, it was a question of public of spending clause legislation, meaning any social safety net program that comes from the federal government to the state government to the beneficiaries. So you're
Right.
talking about, depriving about 100 million people of their very longstanding civil rights. That's what Marion County was trying to do. They were trying to roll back the civil rights of this country, very longstanding, about 50 some years. And they teamed up. So the Marion County, which a lot of people may not know if they're watching, I don't know who's going to watch this, but Marion County is completely 100% controlled by Democrats. So they ended up teaming up with Todd Rokita, and then he brought in, I think, about 21 other red state attorneys general, as they came in as amicus supporters. They filed an amicus brief, what's known as the friend of the court.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty shocked by this, actually, as to what they were
just
asking.
imagine. I mean, and that's where we all were while we were waiting for this Supreme Court case to be argued and decided. We were all, like in a full panic in this
Well,
state.
can you
Anybody
imagine
who
how I
cares.
felt?
I know, right. When you told me
Question
that,
number one.
I just meant so much to me. I couldn't believe it when you said, I was so afraid that my name would be attached to a case that took away rights from millions of people.
Of
And
course, I
so
was afraid.
I
Of
can't
course,
imagine. I can't
because
imagine.
the whole point of this lawsuit was to do something good, right? To give people their rights through FINRA and the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act, which was question 2. There were 2 questions in front of the Supreme Court. Question 2 was about specifically about my case, the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act,
Mhm.
and whether the, provision against chemical restraint and the provision against an involuntary transfer were enforceable, through Section 1983. That's question 2. But question 1 was really a monumental, huge question. And yes, I was extremely worried. I was, as they say, beside myself,
Yeah.
but
Oh my gosh. So
I
yeah, so
just
we
couldn't
were
believe
all in a
this was happening.
panic. Yeah, I mean, and
Yes.
social justice organizations like Citizens Action Coalition, Hoosier Action, groups like that were really out there protesting, really trying to make some news about it and trying to get HHC to pull that. And even Hogsett, during an election year, piped in to say we should just do the more specific question, not this more broadly framed question that would impact so many more people. But
Oh, what a
it was
hypocrite
all
he
for
is,
naught. I
right?
mean, you
He's
can't
such a
just say,
hypocrite.
you can't just say, oh, like halfway there, okay, hey, Supreme Court, never mind about that one part. It was in the
And
fix was
he
in, they had to do it.
and Deb, he knows that. I mean, Joe Hogsett is the
Yeah,
former U.S. attorney for the Southern District. He very well knows that.
yeah,
He's quite manipulative, and he's a hypocrite, and essentially is lying to the people. He knows that you can't just now, as say, oh, please just consider only question 2, not question 1.
yeah. It
You
does not
know,
work
I
like that. Once you go through all the trouble to, write an appeal to the United States Supreme Court, you don't get to go back and edit it along the way.
right.
So
I
yeah,
mean, he's ridiculous. So I mean,
it
I'm
was,
I'm hoping somebody will find out I think there's a political backstory here, very much worth telling.
yes, yes, there's
Because
definitely a book in this.
yeah, I think Marion County is probably one of the most corrupt counties in the country. I mean, after seeing this, and I mean, this entire case, the way they pursued it is, it's really shocking to the conscience, actually,
It is.
especially
And
the fact that they're Democrats. I
yeah,
just could not
I
believe it.
participated in many of those protests in Indianapolis, and it was just heartbreaking. People came to, because we do is we go to the HHC public board meetings, and there was a space for public comment. And so we would all, one by one, get up and say our piece. But people were coming in who were so severely disabled and would testify as to what would happen if they had no cause of action to remedy a wrong against them, to be mishandled, mistreated, under covered with Medicaid, certain medications not being covered when they should. They would have no redress for those kinds of bad acts by providers who were getting federal dollars. I mean, it's just so widespread. There's no way that you could say, oh, well, all of them will just behave. No way. But
No, the
now,
states don't behave, and it doesn't
no,
matter whether it's a red state or a blue state.
right.
You can
And there's
have gross
always bad
mismanagement at
actors.
the top.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's always
And so
bad actors.
now, yeah, now all of those bad actors would be protected. They would be allowed to treat nursing home patients and anyone on Medicaid, however they wanted, and there would be no redress for those bad acts. So, I mean, it was a very intense time, a very scary time. Waiting for this, oral argument at
Yeah.
the Supreme Court, and then of course waiting, even longer for the decision. It was like another 7 months or something after the
Yeah, it
oral
was exactly
arguments.
7 months. Yeah. And, I mean, there was a lot of pressure on me too from different national advocacy groups, civil rights groups, disability rights groups, women's rights groups, that I somehow should extricate myself from this case, because the consensus was pretty much about, from all the legal experts and, everybody in the know, that we're going to lose this case. That's why the court took it. They took it for one reason,
Right,
and they took it to reverse. And then really they took it for question number 1.
right.
And so
Yeah.
it put me in a very difficult position, but I really didn't see any way. I
I
mean,
didn't
I'm
either.
the respondent in this whole saga. So,
Yeah, I
all we
didn't
could
see
do
it
was
as
fight
a
on.
success either. Yeah, I had, zero confidence that this was going to go our way. So, yeah, and
Well,
then, so
I
then,
have more confidence than most people. I mean, we always thought that there could be a path to 5. but it was a narrow path, but we always thought there was a path to 5.
And
So
when you say path to 5, you mean a majority of the Supreme Court
majority,
justices ruling in your favor.
right.
Yeah.
But
So
that was
yeah,
not the
well,
consensus of everybody else. So,
I can't imagine. And it was, it was great that this law firm stuck with you, and was able to take it to the Supreme Court. I mean, oh
they
my
did
gosh, I
stick
mean,
with us, and they were absolutely fantastic. And this entire victory really is because they worked so hard. They were tireless in how much effort they put in to this case. I mean, all Hoosiers should be grateful to Arnold and Porter. Really, all Hoosiers, every single one of us,
yeah,
especially the lead appellate attorney, Andrew Tutt.
yeah.
He worked so hard on this case. There was about 20 attorneys that worked tirelessly on this case. I was, trying to do my little part, but they really were the ones that,
Man,
they have, like, I would call an entire system there of, running a Supreme Court case. They know what they're doing, so I was
right. So
really,
now let's
for me,
talk
it was an
about
opportunity to learn, actually. So,
but yes, what a great education, I bet. Yes, now you're ready to do your own, Supreme Court
no
case.
way.
So now though, let's talk about what this means. This means that nursing home care had better be up to snuff under the Patient's Bill of Rights in the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act, or they're going to get sued, and they're going to get
Right,
sued for a
right.
lot of money and for
So the big,
attorney's fees.
right. So the big shocker was on June 8th, the decision came down, and the big shocker was that we won 7-2 on both questions, not just on one, on both questions.
That is
And,
amazing.
you know, it's, they say it's a miracle, we needed a miracle to win, but I
It
said,
feels
hey,
like a
I
miracle.
believe
It
in
really does.
miracles. That's what my appellate attorney said. Susie, we need a miracle to win this case. This
So
was
I
just a
think what
couple
it
of weeks.
means now is that nursing homes will do a better job. I mean,
Well,
right?
I don't give, they need to, right? They have to improve their
They
quality of
better.
care, but will they, right? Now they of course have, there is, the
So now there's
ability
a
of,
financial incentive to do better.
well, I mean, you would think that would motivate them. I'm not so sure, actually. I really am not so sure. I mean, you would think, just basic psychology and basic understanding of motivation, right? That now, oh, you can be held accountable. You should improve the quality of care. Very, very simple. Just improve the standards of care, follow the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act.
I mean,
But I am not so
shocking
sure.
anyway. It's kind of shocking anyway, isn't it? That there was no remedy of HHC losing their license, for having violated these rights. You would think that would be kind of a
Well,
first
the state of
administrative
Indiana
step.
would never do that, and apparently neither will the federal government. I mean, this whole story is very interesting in that, the state of Indiana is sort of, in bed with them in a way, because I mean, if you look at who owns these nursing homes, I mean, Marion County is the biggest player. They're controlled by Democrats, but the rest of the counties are controlled by Republicans, right? And the
Yeah,
state is controlled by Republicans. And this is a massive amount of money coming into the state. And a lot of that money is being donated into the campaign coffers of a lot of our politicians, right? So
that's right.
and I mean, look who controls the state. Eric Holcomb. He's been there 7 years.
Mhm.
Has he done anything to improve, the lives of nursing home patients? Our governor? No, nothing.
No.
He's
And
never
there
going to do
was
anything.
just a recent article showing, I think it was the health industry was the second largest campaign donor.
I think they might have been the first largest, and
First,
then the
I thought it was
utilities
the charter school people were
Oh,
first.
maybe, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I think they were first, and
competition there.
the health industry was the second largest donator
Yeah,
to
yeah.
politicians. So I mean, I think though, what I hope, and because this case got so little media coverage, and part of it's because it's complicated. It's a complicated story. It's a complicated issue, but let's hope that it means that people will start suing and it will drive a requirement to provide higher quality care for people in nursing homes.
I hope so. I mean, people can now stand up for their rights in federal court. I hope that more attorneys, plaintiffs' attorneys or civil rights attorneys will take these cases, you know. I mean, there are about 500 of these nursing homes, and they're really going to have to up their game and provide better quality care, or else they're going to be held accountable. Now, my big fear, you know, is because I've been fighting these people for a very, very long time. It feels like I'm fighting the devil most of the time. My big fear is they are going to run to our United States senators or one of the congressmen and, you know, pay as much cash as they possibly can, you know, and campaign contributions, and get, you know, someone to sponsor a bill to do a statutory fix. And I think that that is what they will do. So this is very important for citizens, all Hoosiers, to really pay attention to what they're up to, because I don't think they're just going to go, you know, quietly, you know, or give up their big cash cow, and they're not going to improve. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure actually, Deb, why the federal government, the DOJ, or the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General, has not investigated what is going on in Indiana. So the federal government has totally failed us. And by the way, not only did they totally fail us, you know, just all these years, you know, by allowing this whole scheme to fester, but the, you know, Solicitor General of the United States came in with an amicus brief that was against us on the nursing home question. So they totally threw Hoosiers under the bus. That's the Biden administration, again, Democrats, you know. And that was very, very disappointing to see, because, you know, I mean, you know, I'm, you know, I'm just very disappointed in this. This is outrageous. You know, so we had to face down local government, HHC, the state government in the form of Todd Rokita and all his 21, you know, friends, you know, right-wing friends, you know, the states that are conservative states, and plus the Solicitor General, who was really, you know, they spent the Deputy Solicitor General who came to argue, because, you know, there was 3 attorneys prior to our attorney arguing, you know, in this case. There's 4 attorneys total. So first is the petitioner's attorney, then the Indiana Solicitor General, Thomas Fisher, came, and, you know, he, you know, gave his argument. And then, of course, the Deputy Solicitor General of the United States, Ben Schneider, was there, making his argument that, you know, Hoosier nursing home patients should not have these rights. It was pretty appalling. Fortunately, 7 of the justices did not buy it. So
it is shocking. Well, and then now you have to go forward back to the district court and do your fact finding case. Right.
So now the case will come back here and then just be a regular civil rights case, you know, and it'll go forward. And, you know, I know other attorneys have already filed other cases against other county hospitals. Yes, you know, I know that, you know, using this new precedent, which is really great. You know, I'm really happy about that. And I hope that people will get justice, you know, and I really hope that, you know, the legacy of this case will be improved quality of care for Hoosier nursing home patients, you know, the reinforcement of all our federal rights throughout the country, obviously, you know, and the fact that, you know, the weakest people in our society need to be protected, but they all should be able to protect themselves and take, you know, state actors who are abusing them to federal court and hold them accountable, just like Section 1983 intended. You know, this really is really a David and Goliath battle. You know, this is the little guy, little people against the big state actors, you know, who really, they will take, I tell you what, if we're not vigilant as citizens, the states are going to chip away at our rights. And this was, they tried to, I mean, this case, look how brazen they were. They were shameless and brazen in trying to take away the rights of the most vulnerable. And it's shameful that this was coming from Democrats in Marion County. And I certainly blame Joe Hogsett for most, if not all of this. he's a very deceitful, manipulative person. It's a shame that they renominated him to be the mayor of Indianapolis. This guy should be ousted from public office. I mean, he's a disgrace
Yes, I
to
know
not
that.
only Hoosiers, but literally a disgrace to humanity. That's who Joe Hogsett is, and the others involved. There are many others involved here. You know, it wasn't like he just made this decision. There are many others. But if you look at this strictly from a political, you know, type of you know, decision, it is definitely him. You know, and if you're ever wondering where is the Indiana ACLU, have you ever wondered where they are?
Yes, I have wondered.
Yeah, well, there's a reason they've never cared about Hoosier nursing home patients as well, because the executive director of the Indiana ACLU for many, many years, her name is Jane Henniger. She is the wife of Matthew Gutwein, the former CEO of Health and Hospital Corporation of Marion County. So you'll never, if you notice, like where was the ACLU all this time?
Right.
You know,
That's
so a lot of
disappointing.
problems in this state, a lot of problems, and very disgraceful. But you know, really, Hoosiers need to wake up. They really need to wake up and start holding these public officials accountable. I mean, Todd Rokita's up for reelection. You know,
Yep.
so is Hogsett. Why are people reelecting these people? Get them out of office. They have no business being public servants. They literally tried to take away the rights of 100 million people. What
Right.
they were trying to do was so bad that not even this conservative court could stomach it. And they came in on our side. It was inhumane what they were trying to do. Inhumane.
It is inhumane.
There,
Yeah.
I have nothing but contempt for all of these people. But I'm glad I fought the good fight all the way to the end. And I really do believe that the angels were on our side. That's the only thing that can explain this. The angels were on our side. You
Well,
know,
you are
and
absolutely a shero. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud to know you and so proud of everything you did. And I'm sure that your father is proud too from wherever he is at now.
my
I'm
father
sure.
was very good man. He was a very good man. He was a very good father, very hard worker, you know, and you know, I never would allow somebody to abuse my dad. And they inflicted such a pain, a deep pain on my family. You know, it's really kind of, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's very painful, you
Yeah.
know, and I really, really do not want others to suffer this kind of pain, you know, other nursing home patients or their families. There's really no need for this kind of abuse. You know, they need to improve their care. They need to hire more employees, and they need to pay their employees more. These
Oh, yeah, that's
employees are
bad.
being paid, especially the certified nursing assistants, are being paid very, very low wages.
Yeah.
Very low wages.
When I
You
used to
know,
run early childhood programs, we would get a lot of employees who had been CNAs and who had left because the work was too hard. It was physically difficult, and we paid more than the nursing homes did to CNAs. So yeah, it was horrible.
it's very physically
yeah.
demanding work, and
Yes.
really, it's primarily done by women. Very few
Oh, yeah.
men will do this kind of work, and oftentimes you do need men in nursing homes to because a lot of men are
lifting
physically
patients
stronger than than women, and you know, there's really barely any men that go into nursing
right.
home care field. And that's because the wages are so low.
Right.
I mean, they intentionally. I mean, they're so not only are they exploiting Marion County and company, not only are they exploiting the nursing home patients, they're also exploiting their employees, the people that they hire. You know, again, they're hiring through American Senior Communities. Remember, they're the private partner. Right. You know, which, you know, I don't want to go into American Senior Communities, but they have a whole story that's interesting in it of themselves, right? A few years ago, their CEO was caught, you know, essentially in a kickback,
right?
Yes, and he is literally in federal prison right now. He's in federal prison.
Right.
So, but
there was just so much money. I mean, there was so much money flowing in, you know, that people like him, you know, it was too easy to just, so, I mean, because nobody seemed to care. Nobody seemed to be watching. That he could just take whatever money he wanted. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure, when you're in something like that, that's so, unethical from, from the start, that, another step of embezzling, it's not much of a step
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
It
So we're
isn't.
going to wrap up. But thank you so much for doing this with me, Susie. Your
Sure.
story is just amazing. And I just hope that you are so proud of yourself, like I am, for just being such a hero and pushing this
Well,
through.
I don't think of myself that way. I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful for, like I said, all the big blessings that happened in this case, all the miracles, the fact that, this, brilliant appellate attorney came to help us, just out of nowhere, and his big law firm. I mean, that was miracle number
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
I am so grateful for all the amicus briefs. We had 25 amicus briefs with over 200 signatories from so many big national organizations, as well as, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, and, different, Democratic leadership, the top Democratic leadership in Congress. We had, former HHS officials, former members of Congress. I mean, if you look at just the amicus briefs, I mean, it was just a tsunami of amicus briefs begging the court and trying to demonstrate to the court, please do not do this. AARP, they were fantastic supporter, actually. So I encourage everybody to,
Join.
when you're over 50, become a member of AARP, because they really do fight for people. They have a legal foundation, and they have supported us from the beginning, from the Seventh Circuit, and also the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care. It's I think really the premier like national organization for nursing home care advocacy. So I mean, throughout this journey, just there was so many blessings that came. I call them my angels. You're so many angels. So we had all this positive energy.
Well,
And then of
right
course,
was on your side,
exactly. I really do feel, if you fight the good fight, for
Yes.
good, the motivation for this case was really love and something good, and we had a lot of support. It's in my mind, it was always like this battle of good versus evil, really. I know this
And
sounds a little corny,
it was. Yeah.
but it really is. It has been, and I tell you what, the forces of good lined up big time, and so many angels came to help us. And I mean, really, I also have to say thank you to the United States Supreme Court. I mean,
Right. Well, and I
what
think
can
you said it best when you said, even these very conservative Supreme Court justices, felt like this was too much. I mean, that they could not even find a way to justify this kind of cruelty and
absolutely,
inhumane behavior.
absolutely, absolutely. And
And of
this
course, they're
this
all old,
decision,
so they're all going to end up in one of these nursing homes pretty soon. So,
exactly, this decision, I have to say, is Justice Jackson's first major opinion, which of course I'm thrilled about.
yes.
And it's beautifully written. And really it's a smackdown to HHC, to the state of Indiana, and the Solicitor General of the United States, as far as I'm concerned. They all got a major smackdown. And I cannot be more thrilled, with the 7 justices who, were on our side. What can we say? And unfortunately, we didn't get all of them, but we weren't able to convince all of them. That's okay.
Yeah.
We only needed 5 and we got 7. So it's really
Yeah.
a resounding
Yeah.
victory.
It is a
Resounding victory.
resounding victory.
So I am
Absolutely.
so grateful to the Supreme Court. What can I say?
Who'd have thought? Yeah, who'd have thought? Anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much,
Thanks
Susie,
for your interest, Deb.
for
Thank you
doing
so
this.
much.
Oh, well, I hope more people will become aware of this
Yes.
and
Well,
will
thanks.
start suing. Because I feel like there's a sense out there that people just kind of suck it up and they just live with this terrible, terrible care that their family members get. And so I
Well, for a
hope
very
this
long time,
really makes people aware.
yeah, for a long time, that's what's been happening. And of course, HHC and other county hospitals have been able to get away with it because they're protected by the Indiana Medical Malpractice Act. But,
Right. They thought
guess
they
what?
were.
Yeah, not anymore. So,
Right. Right.
thanks again for your interest. Thanks, of course, for all your advocacy, and, just just very grateful, for this decision. So I really hope and pray that it's going to help a lot of people. And I hope I can get justice for my father. So
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
thank you. Thank you.